Hello everyone. Welcome back to QuickStory English. Today's story is about one of the most life-changing inventions in history, the telephone. Let's travel back in time to discover how a man's dream to help the deaf led to an invention that changed how the whole world communicates. Now let's begin our story. In the middle of the 1800s, the world was full of discoveries. Steam engines ran across the land, ships carried people over the seas, and telegrams sent short messages using electric wires. But people still could not hear each other from far away. If you wanted to talk to someone, you had to travel or send a letter that could take days or weeks to arrive. Many inventors dreamed of making voices travel through wires, but no one had succeeded yet. It seemed impossible, like catching the wind. Alexander Graham Bell was born in Scotland in 1847. His father was a teacher of speech who created a special method to help deaf people learn to speak. His mother was almost completely deaf, but she loved music. Bell used to sit beside her and speak clearly, so she could understand him by reading his lips. From his parents, Bell learned something important. Sound was powerful, and communication could bring people closer. As a child, Bell was curious. He took apart machines to see how they worked and built new ones from their pieces. When he was only 12, he made a machine that cleaned wheat for a local farmer. But his real passion was sound and speech. He wanted to understand how the human voice worked and how to make it travel. When Bell was 23, his family moved to Canada, and later he went to the United States to teach at a school for the deaf in Boston. There, he met many students who couldn't hear or speak. One of them was Mabel Hubbard, a bright young woman who had lost her hearing after a childhood illness. Mabel became one of his best students, and later, his wife. Bell wanted to find a way to help people like Mabel communicate more easily. He spent long nights in his workshop, experimenting with metal wires, magnets, and batteries. He believed that sound could be turned into an electrical signal and then sent through a wire. At the same time, other inventors, like Elisha Gray and Thomas Edison, were also trying to send sound over wires. The race to invent the talking machine had begun. One evening in 1874, while working with his assistant Thomas Watson, Bell had an idea. "If we can make an electrical wave that copies the shape of a sound wave," he said, "then we can send speech through a wire." Watson, who was skilled with machines, helped him build the device. They worked in a small workshop filled with tools, batteries, and tangled wires. They failed many times. Sparks flew. Some experiments even shocked them. But Bell didn't give up. He believed failure was just a step toward success. Finally, in March 1876, something magical happened. Bell was in one room, and Watson was in another, connected only by a wire. Bell accidentally spilled acid on his clothes and shouted, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." Watson, hearing his voice clearly through the wire, ran into the room, shocked and excited. "It works. I heard you," he cried. Those were the first words ever spoken through a telephone. In that small moment, history changed forever. Just a few hours before Bell's famous experiment, another inventor, Elisha Gray, had filed a patent for a similar idea. For years, people argued over who had really invented the telephone first. But Bell's patent was officially accepted on March 7, 1876, and he became known as the inventor of the telephone. The news spread quickly. Scientists, business people, and even ordinary people were amazed. A voice traveling through a wire seemed like magic. Later that year, Bell demonstrated his invention at the Centennial Exhibition in Philadelphia. When visitors heard the telephone for the first time, they were astonished. Even the Emperor of Brazil shouted, "My God, it talks." People crowded around to see this miracle machine. Bell's invention became the star of the exhibition. Soon, newspapers all over the world wrote about him, calling him the man who made electricity speak. After the exhibition, Bell and his partners founded the Bell Telephone Company in 1877. At first, only a few people owned telephones, and they could only connect 2 points directly with a wire. But as technology improved, telephone exchanges were built, allowing many people to talk through a central operator. Bell married Mabel the same year, and they began their life together. While others handled the business, Bell continued to focus on science. He invented a photophone, which sent sound by light, a metal detector, and even worked on early ideas for airplanes. The telephone quickly changed the world. Farmers could call towns, cities could call other cities, and families could talk even when they were far apart. Businesses used the telephone to grow faster. Doctors could give advice from a distance. It made the world feel smaller, and people felt closer than ever before. By the early 1900s, millions of telephones were in use. Bell's dream of connecting voices had become a global reality. One of the most touching stories about Bell is from his later years. When his wife Mabel or his deaf friends placed their hands on his throat, they could feel the vibration of his voice. Though they couldn't hear it, they understood its warmth. Bell once said, "The great aim of my life was to make the deaf hear, and I succeeded more than I dreamed." His invention not only carried sound, it carried love, hope, and connection. In August 1922, Alexander Graham Bell passed away peacefully at his home in Canada. On the day of his funeral, something extraordinary happened. As a tribute, all telephones in the United States and Canada were silenced for 1 full minute. Millions of people stood in silence, honoring the man who had given them the gift of voice across distance. It was one of the quietest moments in history, and one of the most powerful. Today, Bell's telephone has evolved into mobile phones and video calls. We can now talk to anyone, anywhere in the world, in seconds. From a wooden box with wires to a tiny device in our hands. It all started with Bell's idea in a small Boston workshop. Every time we make a call, we're continuing the dream that began with, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." The story of the telephone teaches us many things. Curiosity leads to discovery. Bell's questions about sound opened a new world. Failure is part of success. He failed hundreds of times before he succeeded. A small idea can change the world. Bell only wanted to help the deaf, but his invention transformed global communication. Compassion inspires innovation. His love for helping people led to one of the most powerful inventions in history. So next time you pick up your phone, remember the man who made it possible. The teacher who wanted everyone to be heard. And that was the amazing story of Alexander Graham Bell and the invention of the telephone. We hope you enjoyed learning English through this inspiring story. If you liked it, please subscribe, like, and share to support QuickStory English. See you in the next story, where we'll learn English with another amazing invention that changed the world. Goodbye, and keep learning with QuickStory English.